Happy Thursday, everyone. Welcome back to From the Press Box here on the Right Team podcast. We've got a busy Thursday of action going on here, so we want to get right into it. I also have with me, of course, my co-host, my daily co-host, Brother Matt Paul, who is going to be jumping on here in just a second. But first, let me go ahead and give the proper shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible here every single day on the Right Team podcast. First of all, East Texas Baptist University combines strong academics with championship level athletics and a Christ-centered mission that impacts every part of campus life. If you're looking for a university that values faith, competition, and community, ETBU is the place for you. Learn more about life on the Hill in Marshall, Texas at www.etbu.edu. Today's show is also brought to you by Stiles Electric. Based right here in East Texas with offices in Longview and Mount Pleasant, Stiles Electric has been providing dependable professional electrical work for over a quarter century in East Texas and beyond. When experience matters, Stiles Electric delivers service that speaks for itself. And finally, today's episode is also brought to you by Right Team Services. Right Team Services helps schools, small businesses, and nonprofits turn ideas into impact through effective writing, clear messaging, and meaningful connection across your websites and social media platforms. When you need results but don't quite have the words to say, let Right Team Services provide the voice you need. Contact me today at 903-926-1766 or visit our website at www.rightteamservices.net to learn more about how we can help you tell your story. I want to get right into this, Matt. And first of all, welcome back to the show. You've been up and at 'em this morning, I know, at KMHT 103.9. Now you're back with the pastor boots on, right? And they're sitting in your study.
That's right. Back in here. Good day. Good night last night. Little tired. Basketball did not end until very late last night. Also had church, and I'm with our children at church with a great team of volunteers, but we played a lot last night. And so, yeah,
looking younger every day.
Not feeling it, but sure, I'll take it.
Well, let's jump right into this here. First, we'll start off today with our little updates on as we get ready to go into another round of UIL basketball here. High schools are moving on toward the state tournament here in Texas. We have quite a few East Texas teams still left, of course, in the tournament, in their respective tournaments. And again, just as a note, we have updated the schedule, or I have updated the schedule for the UIL boys in terms of our area schools and their matchups on our Facebook page, the Right Team Podcast. So the complete schedule is there with times and locations. I believe I have everyone updated on there. You can go catch and see where your favorite team is playing and teams around them for sure. Or if you've got some games going on in your area, like I have, and I'm looking forward to tomorrow, Matt, here in Hallsville. I did want to, instead of just going down the list here, I kind of wanted us to kind of talk about some games that are popping out to you a little bit. It's just some games of note. I do know that you are going to be fortunate enough to get to work the Pleasant Grove and Chapel Hill game over at Marshall Friday night, which you kind of willed into existence on, I believe, yesterday's show.
I might have had some inside intel on that. I don't know.
Talking about some breaking news. We were able to do that yesterday before we signed off. But let's start out with that one. And again, you were wishing for this one. Pleasant Grove is taking on Chapel Hill, 2-4A behemoths kind of going at it there. Pleasant Grove comes into that one with a 22-10 record, while Chapel Hill's 31-2 on the year. You got yourself a pretty good area matchup there going on in Maverick Gym Friday.
Yeah, Pleasant Grove's got a young man, and I apologize, I'm blanking on his name. He's between a 4 and a 5-star football player. We got to watch them play when Marshall was in the Texarkana tournament, kind of right before New Year's. The Pleasant Grove was playing the game before ours, and we were all cheering because he was approaching 40 points, and he actually got there. He dropped 40 in a tournament game. Pleasant Grove, I mean, it doesn't matter what sport, you know this as well as I do. High-level athleticism, a lot of talent there. Chapel Hill played in a very tough competitive district, of course, with Lindale and Kilgore and Pine Tree, who I believe is still alive as well. Chapel Hill's got some ball players. We actually played them in a little fall league that Chapel Hill hosted. And again, those fall leagues are tough. Football players aren't there. How much playing time are these kids actually going to get? Chapel Hill had one kid hit 11 threes on us in that fall game. And some of them, he just dribbled up, and when he got within 5 or 6 feet of the 3-point line, which you typically don't engage defensively there, because it leaves you vulnerable. He was just draining them. So, look, there's a lot of stuff to look forward to. That is a game I would go to watch just for funsies. But if you're going to tell me I get to be on the mic for it and I get paid to go watch that game, well, sign me up for that for sure.
Well, if you weren't going to be going to that one, I'm pretty sure you might have went cross town to the other one going on
Yes.
Friday night at ETBU's Ornelas Gymnasium with the Tatum Eagles taking on the Liberty-Eylau Leopards. Tatum, of course, the defending state champs, facing a football rival here in the area round of the basketball playoffs. The Leopards come into that matchup at 30-4 on the season. The game tips off at 6:30 Friday there at ETBU. So that's another one that, again, there's so many good ones going on, particularly in Harrison County, that it's going to be hard to really pick one and go to it, right?
Liberty-Eylau, I tell you, man, that's a really good team.
You've already seen them up close, though, the other night.
Yep, really good team. And then,
So
of course,
Tatum,
your neck of the woods has one too.
Yes, that was next on my list here, as Elysian Fields will be playing Hawkins this Friday night at 6:30 over here in Bobcat Coliseum at Hallsville High School. Beautiful place to watch a ball game. And come hell or high water, Matt, I intend to be in the house that night to watch the Jackets. Of course, one of my clients on my right team services side, but it's an interesting game there. The Jackets were very impressive the other night in that bi-district game against Shelbyville, facing a pretty good Hawkins team here coming in, but not unbeatable by any stretch of the imagination. Again, a football rivalry from this past season. They were in the same district in football, but again, meeting here in the area round of the playoffs. And you guys will have that actually on the radio, I believe, Friday, correct?
Yeah, tomorrow night, Tristan's going to be on the broadcast with that one. And I feel like Hawkins is a clear favorite in this, but not like, we were talking about that Martins Mill Harleton girls game earlier, and which we heaped praise on, and deservedly so, on the season Harleton girls basketball had. But there just was no world I could see them getting past Martins Mill. And that had very little to do with Harleton, had everything to do with Martins Mill. I don't think this matchup, Elysian Fields with Hawkins, is to that extent, but Elysian Fields is going to have to play a really good game because Hawkins is a really good basketball team.
Some other games here of note that I wanted to just mention here, a couple of them. Actually, there is one game actually being played this evening featuring one of our coverage area teams, and that is Overton versus San Augustine. That game is taking place this evening down in Tenaha, the Tenaha Special Events Center. So that is one area matchup that is available tonight. Again, San Augustine, one of those teams on the girls' side in particular that Elysian Fields folks are well aware of. And so they're actually playing their area round game this evening. The only other one here on my list, Matt, that I had of note that I was just going to be watching intently is, and we talked about this extensively yesterday, with 27-4 District 10 5A champion Lufkin facing Frisco Reedy out of Frisco, of course, 24-9 on the season. That game takes place at 7 o'clock Friday at Eustis High School. Again, looking to see, can someone from District 10 5A break through and make it to the regional semis? That's going to be a big test for the Panthers coming up Friday night against that tough Frisco school.
Where is Eustis? Trying to remember.
Eustis is I believe kind of south of Terrell.
Okay.
Around the Canton area, a little bit further past Canton area.
Gotcha. Yeah. I see. Yeah, actually. Yeah, that is south.
Pretty good drive for Lufkin.
Yeah, it's not far from Athens, actually, kind of between Athens and Maybank, it looks like.
Yes.
But anyway, I knew I'd driven through there somewhere. Yeah, that's here again, Lufkin playing a DFW area school. They managed to survive Walnut Grove, and I'm not saying that throwing shade on them. That was a good win. We'll see if they're able to do it again. But yeah, I'm curious about that one for sure.
On the UIL girls side, of course, we are to the regional final round of the playoffs. We have 4 of our coverage area teams participating currently. North Lamar will be taking on Dallas Lincoln at 7 o'clock Friday at Caddo Mills High School. The big one here that I had circled was Liberty-Eylau versus Rains. I kind of mentioned that yesterday, what a showdown that is. Liberty-Eylau 32-4 versus Rains 33-4. That's a big matchup going on for the region championship, 6:30 tomorrow evening at Mount Pleasant High School. San Augustine, we spoke of them in terms of the bi-district win they had over Elysian Fields. They are taking on Marlin in the 2A D1 Region 3 final, 7 o'clock Friday at Crockett High School. And then another game taking place this evening, Chireno versus Martin's Mill. That game taking place at 7 o'clock tonight at Tyler Junior College. They're in 2A D2 Region 3. So
that might be the place to be right there. Ooh.
Yeah, you got a 28-4 Chireno team taking on a 30-5 Martin's Mill team. Again, they're at Wagstaff Gym at TJC. So that will, after Friday night, we'll know who's headed to Austin from these regions, Matt. And
that's right.
To see.
Yeah, that'll be cool.
So let's stick with basketball here, but up it up a notch. Again, this is Thursday, which means it's another Back Row Bracketology day here. Matt with his own version of bracketology that we have been unveiling here. Well, I guess now we're at the end of our second week of this. A lot of updates. Kept you up late last night. You've already mentioned. What have you got for us this morning in terms of movers and shakers in the back row?
Biggest wins. Last night, California got a big win against SMU to put them on the cusp. I still have them just barely out. Missouri and San Diego State enter the bracket. Missouri, we talked about them yesterday, had a big win over Tennessee on Tuesday. San Diego State was one of those late games, really dominating Utah State. And San Diego State moves into the bracket. If you looked, they were actually up near the top of the next 4 out. And you say, how do you move that much? The win over Utah State moved them into a tie with Utah State for the conference lead. If you're a conference champion, which right now they are, if it were to end today, they're a conference co-champion. That is something that the committee takes into account. And so that's why the big leap happened. Virginia Tech dropped out of my poll, not because of anything they did. They just didn't play, and teams like Missouri and San Diego State made moves. Santa Clara dropped out just barely. They lost last night. Now, it was to St. Mary's, so it was not a bad loss, but still they lost. So most of the moving was around the bubble line. The big losers were Indiana has pushed themselves to the brink with a rough home loss on Tuesday night to Northwestern. We talked about that a little bit yesterday. I don't know if you've gone back and seen that. Indiana got blatantly fouled on a 3-pointer down 3 with 2 seconds to go, and it was not called, and they were at home. But at the end of the day, you lost the game. So teams like Indiana, Auburn with a rough loss to Oklahoma, they're now kind of teetering on the brink. A&M and Texas and Georgia all lost games this week that weren't games you would say, hey, how'd you lose that one? Texas lost to Florida, who's a top 10 team in the country. Georgia lost at Vanderbilt, who I've got as a 5 seed. A&M lost at Arkansas, who I've got as a 5 seed. So they didn't really drop, but they need to be careful, these teams, because if the teams like TCU, Missouri, San Diego State start pushing, if Cal wants to keep pushing, if Virginia Tech, VCU, Santa Clara get hot, now all of a sudden, not only are you looking at maybe falling into the last 4 in where you got to play on that Tuesday or Wednesday, but you may be looking at wondering if you're going to make it at all. So it's about to get real critical. The next bracketology we do is going to be March. So the madness is here. But I will say, I wanted to see if you noticed this, because you want to talk about how tough. One of the reasons I was up so late was I could not get this bracket together. Do you notice something? Look at everybody on the S curve on the 8 line. Do you notice something about them? What do they all have in common?
They're all ACC schools.
They're all AC, and that was not planned. I promise you. I'm just ranking them. However, I go back and look at it. I'm like, holy cow, they're all ACC schools. Well, 8-9 plays 116. We know for sure one of the number ones is going to be an ACC school. Now, they're allowed to put two ACC schools where they can meet, two from the same conference in the second round. They don't usually try to do it, though. Like, they'd like it to be where an 11 has to beat a 6 just to make it happen or something like that. So really had to kind of do some finagling there, like bump one of them maybe up to a 7. Because the hardest thing was, I'm thinking to myself, well, I'll bump one of them down to 9. Doesn't matter. 8, 9 play each other. So you're in the same boat, whether you're an 8 or a 9. So it was kind of just a weird thing for that to happen, made it a little challenging there. But that has nothing to do with what happens on the court. That's just the math of it all. But some interesting matchups have emerged. And I know next week we're going to start looking at the actual bracket that I've put together. But there are definitely some interesting matchups that have emerged. One of my favorite matchups that has emerged is in the 5-12, because you know how that 5-12 is always one of the notorious upset ones. The way the S curve fell was Vanderbilt playing Belmont, a 5-12. They're both in Nashville. Just funny how that
That's
fell. I
interesting.
don't know if
Yeah.
that matchup would actually happen, but boy, if I'm Vanderbilt, I'm like, look, just give me anybody but Belmont. And that was where it fell. So anyway, but that's kind of where I am.
Just a question here that just jumps out to me before I get to my stuff. So I see Kansas you have as currently a 3 seed with a significant win, coming off the heels of a significant loss.
Yeah.
Of course, right. How do you determine which one takes precedence? The significant loss or the significant win? Is it the most recent? How does that figure into your S curve here?
One of the things I've noticed, and this is just in observing decades of selection committee choices, your wins matter more than your losses. They just do. Now you start piling up losses. That's one of the reasons Auburn is on the cusp. But you know, a lot of people may not realize. You look at Auburn. Auburn is a 15-13 team. 15-13, and you're like, that feels like you just put a 6-6 bowl team in the playoff. You know, like
Right.
what are you? 16 of their 28 games have come against quad 1 competition. If you don't know what that means you played a top 30 team at home or you played a top 75 team on the road. 16 of that's a full 57% of their games are against quad 1 competition. Now you say, what's their record? They're 5-11. And you're like, that's not very good, but the wins matter more than the losses. And they have 5 wins over quad 1 competition. So at the end of the day, no one was going to be shocked if Kansas went 1-1 against Houston and Cincinnati. But it actually works a little better that the win came against Houston and the loss was to Cincinnati. Now, I do want to say first and foremost, Cincinnati's not a bad loss. It's a questionable loss, but it's not a bad loss. Cincinnati is kind of on the cusp of the tournament if they finish hot here. It'd have been different if they'd have lost to some 0-14 team, like Indiana losing to Northwestern. That would have been a bad loss. I don't know that the win over Houston would have been enough to compensate for it. Also, another reason they moved up, they jumped Michigan State, who didn't play. That's part of it. Michigan State, I don't know if you've looked at the schedule for tonight. Michigan State is playing at Purdue. Guess what? Michigan State wins that game. We're flip-flopping back in my mind. There's a couple factors on that, but by and large, wins matter more than losses. I think, because I think the tournament committee's looking, are you a team that can beat anybody? Because that makes for a more fascinating tournament.
In your estimation, was that Kansas loss to Cincinnati worse or not as bad as the UConn loss to Creighton? Which happened, I believe, on the same day, correct? Saturday, this past Saturday.
I think
Something
you're
like that.
right. I think you're right. Looking at the numbers of it, and I'm kind of looking at the net rating, which is the NCAA's tool for one of the tools, the main tools they use for the selection. Cincinnati's 25 places higher than Creighton. Looking at Ken Pomeroy's analytics, which is some of the best analytics to follow. I'm checking that out right now. And Cincinnati is, let's see, 32 places higher than Creighton. So both of them were at home. Both of them were by double digits. Kansas's loss was not as bad. It didn't hurt them as bad. It also doesn't hurt that they're in the Big 12. You're going to get some leeway. When the Big 12's this good, you're going to get some leeway there.
Good point. That's a good point. Very good point. Good stuff again, partner. Again, I've thrown this graphic up there so you guys can follow around here as Matt was talking on the Excel document that he's put together. I do hope by next season, Matt, we'll have this a little bit more. I'm going to work on a little bit more graphically, I guess, significant maybe thing to throw up for our listeners. But right now, man, this stuff is self-explanatory and it's right there in front of you, color-coded and everything. So appreciate you doing all of that work. Again, on another night in which your full-time job was important to you, I know, at church. So you burned the midnight oil last night.
Well, and this is a weird week because I don't know if you look, the Big Ten's about to take center stage. Michigan State's at Purdue tonight. Have you looked at tomorrow night's matchup? Michigan at Illinois. That's a 1 and a 2 seed. So there's a lot that never even happened this week because those 4 teams didn't play until Thursday and Friday night.
Yeah, and again, it's getting down to that time of year where we're kind of going to get out of bracketology and actually start talking more bracket, right?
Yeah.
I mean, looking at some of these potential matchups coming up in the tournament, and who even knows what happens in the conference tournaments, right? That can blow some of this up for sure. And just fascinating to see how this thing comes together in the end. But great work once again. I did want to make some notes here of some things I saw from last night's action and make mention of directly. So did you see the offensive futility from in that St. John's game against UConn?
Missed their last 24 shots.
Yeah, lost 24 straight at the end to close that out in a 32-point loss to Connecticut there. You talk about a team that answered the call. UConn completely shut down SJU last night in record-setting fashion. I mean, 24 straight misses. I've done that before myself out in pickup games, but never seen a number 15 ranked team in the country do that. Rick Pitino was beside himself last night.
You know, that game, because looking at it from a bracket standpoint, look, we got 3 teams I know are going to be number 1 seeds. Something really weird is going to happen to keep Duke, Michigan, and Arizona from being number 1 seeds. That 4th number 1 seed is where it's all kind of up for grabs. And picking UConn in Monday's bracket was kind of like, I guess. I couldn't see enough difference, but I just went. I didn't have to guess after last night.
Yeah, that was about as impressive win as anyone in the entire season. Just a complete defensive dominance down the stretch there for the Huskies. Other action last night, again, I wanted to mention, of course, my Texas Longhorns, and we mentioned this about how big a game that was last night, hosting Florida there in Austin. Everything was going pretty good for about 32 minutes. And then the bottom fell out. Florida went on a 23-9 run in the final 8 minutes there to pull away a relatively easy win over the Horns there at the Moody Center. And look, we've talked about Florida, how they have rounded into shape here in the conference portion of the season, leading the SEC by 2 now, I believe, over Arkansas
and Alabama. Yeah,
right. And so. It was funny. I was putting together our show notes for today last night while I had forgotten that the game was actually on. And so I immediately went to Twitter and tried to get a score. And it was like the Horns had just scored a bucket and it was 65-62. And I was like, okay, I got to stop. I got to go watch this. And of course, again, the old jinx showed up, and I turned. By the time I was able to get away from the computer, and it was about 10 minutes later, and I turned the TV on, and Florida's up by 11 or 12 in the final 2 minutes. I'm like, I waited too late. I waited too late to get to enjoy just a few fleeting moments of dominant Texas or competitive Texas basketball.
Yeah.
But again, you look at it, and again, I'm going to say this, and I'm going back to your bracketology here just real quick to see where you have Florida. You have them as a 2 seed.
And that's rare. Most
it's going to be really hard for me to fill out a bracket and not keep advancing Florida.
Yeah.
Right now. I mean, it's, to be the man, you got to beat the man. And right now they're the man. And until somebody shows that they are, that they can finish a game for 40 minutes, I mean, Florida, I don't want to say they're a sleeper team. I know you're not as a number 2 seed, but they're kind of doing this somewhat quietly, I think, not getting a whole lot of attention here in the SEC.
Well, and that's about to change. For one, the SEC is this year, the SEC is good. It is not the Big 10. It is not the Big 12. But College Game Day is at Florida Saturday. They host Arkansas, and Arkansas and Bama right now are the only teams with a shot at catching Florida, a realistic shot at catching Florida. And obviously, if Arkansas wins that, they move within a game and they would hold the tiebreaker. But it'll be curious to see how that game goes. Look, if Florida goes out and handles Arkansas with ease, 10, 12 points or whatever, it's going to be time. I don't think a lot of people have them as 2 seeds right now. Last time I checked, a lot of people have them as 3. Their metrics, I look at the net ratings right now, and the NCAA's net ratings, Florida's number 6. Ken Palm's got them at number 5. Being ranked number 6 and number 5 screams 2 seed more than 3 seed to me. That's why I did it. But yeah.
And again, the SEC again is not as deep, or does not appear to be as deep and just loaded with talented teams like it was, say, last year.
Yeah.
And Florida is by showing that they are the class of the SEC right now. But if they go ahead and they win the regular season title and follow that up with a conference tournament title, I don't see how you can keep them out of a 2 seed.
I don't either. And in fact, I'm looking at it right now. We just broke down that quad 1, quad 2, all that kind of stuff. 3 teams have more quad 1 wins than Florida. They are Duke, Arizona, and Michigan. The 3 teams that I just said are the guaranteed, can't be moved off of the number 1 line. If you've got more quad 1 wins than everybody but them, that's kind of why I've got to put them as a 2 right now. I may be wrong, but that's where I got them.
Quickly here, just kind of a recap of last night's NCAA women's top 25 action. A couple of games stood out to me as well. We mentioned this yesterday coming up, but the game, Michigan versus Ohio State, was as good as advertised, as good as any probably football game we've seen recently in this rivalry. Number 8 Michigan takes down number 13 Ohio State 88-86 in overtime. Interestingly enough, you look at the box score of this game. For Michigan, Olivia Olson scored 31 points and Silas Sword scored 22. That's 53 of the 86 scored by the Wolverines last night. 62% of their scoring in an overtime win over the Buckeyes. So people can say that's one-sided. I can say, man, give me those 2 high-scoring players and 3 other ones that can feed off of that rather than having 5 so-so people. Anytime, anybody can put together that kind of scoring on any given night. But Michigan does win that rivalry game there, number 8 in the country, strengthening themselves for sure. Also, the other game of note in the Big 12, Kansas pulls off a mild upset of number 20 Texas Tech, 68-59 at home. The Jayhawks were at home. Note from the box score there, but KU's Samaya Nichols scored 15 of her 19 points from the free throw line. Ooh. She was money at the charity stripe.
Yes, she was.
But anyway, big win for Kansas. They're unranked in the Big 12, and Tech takes that loss on the road. So there's your women's action here that we're talking about. Again, you can go check out the top 25 scores on ESPN. Don't want to go down those game by game, but Again, ladies, rounding into form here as we get into March, literally next week.
And another thing about that Kansas Texas Tech game, we talked about this over the weekend with, I believe it was Clemson and Virginia getting big wins when they were on the bubble. If you look at a new bracket came out, I believe it was Tuesday. If you look at Kansas, they were one of the first 4 out. Wins like that are how you get yourself back into the conversation of where you need to be. So you're always going to see this time of year some teams that and this is what every year there's 1 or 2 teams. How are we not in? It's different than the football playoff. How are we not considered one of the top 12? Okay, I can get your gripe. How are we not considered one of the top 68? Look, you had some chances there. Everybody's got chances. Some teams are going to play their way out of it. Some teams are going to play their way in. Kansas took a step to play their way in, so good on them.
And it's funny, I thought about this the other day and didn't mention it when we were looking at the bracket. Every year it happens. You have teams sitting there at 65, 66, 69, 70, those teams that they're all going to be able to present an argument as to why they should be included. It doesn't matter how many teams you have. There's always going to be that handful of teams that's on the outside looking in that's going to question why they didn't make it. And whether it's 12 or 64 to 68, whatever it is, you're always going to have that. And that's kind of the beauty of this whole thing this time of year is the debates that go on and rage about it. But it's very hard. It's very hard in a 64 team field to get it wrong.
And that's just it. Look at the football playoff championship game this year was Indiana and Miami. Indiana was number 1. Miami was number 10. Miami was one of, if not the most controversial additions to it. No one. So if Miami had been left out, I don't think anybody would have been like, whoa, how could you do that? But Miami makes the championship game and was in the game, had a chance to win the game. The 69th team that gets left out, I'm sorry. They're not winning that tournament. They're not making the Final Four. They might win a game. Maybe they get a favorable matchup and they make the second weekend, which is huge. It's a good accomplishment. But you're not winning that tournament. And so it's a little different when your expectation is we just wanted to get there and win a game or two, as opposed to we believe if we get in there, we can win it all, which Miami proved.
Go on to our back page portion of our program this morning here, Matt. What are some things that have come across your desk over the last 24 hours that are worth mentioning here that we haven't talked about?
3 things. One that I think you'll chuckle at. I don't know if you heard. I got to throw in the Razorbacks. They got a big win over A&M last night. Both my boys were at that game. My younger one's on a college visit. I'll put it in air quotes.
Don't call him out like that.
Pop. Yeah, he knows where he's going to college. But anyway, they're up there together. They got to go to the game. John Calipari was asked about Darius Acuff. See if you can read between the lines on this. He said, I'm a little disappointed. Why isn't he in the National Player of the Year equation? He's doing things in the guts of games, and he's playing when he could probably take some games off, but he's playing anyway.
Yeah.
Can you read anything between
those? That's a cow swipe. Yep.
So love seeing that. Second thing on the national scene, I don't know if you saw this, but University of Cincinnati is suing Brennan Sorsby over his exit fee as he is transferred to Texas Tech. More of this portal and whatnot. They are saying he did not uphold his obligation, and it was in the contract that if he left before December 15th of this year, which he left, he didn't even play in their bowl game. He was gone. Which I'm like, look, Texas Tech, just pay his fee. I mean, like you're pumping all this money into it anyway. But I'm sure you saw that story come across your wire.
I did, and I actually left it out of my back page, but it was on my radar, and I'm glad you brought it up because I did want to talk about it in just a second. Look, we've talked about the transfer portal in NIL, of course, at the appropriate time. We did all of that. The next step in all of this is this kind of thing. You're going to have schools suing players, and you saw a little bit of it with the Duke quarterback going to Miami.
Yep.
And there's a lot of other stuff that's going on. This is what happens when there are no rules, and there is no one enforcing rules. And you've got, and look, I was happy to see this. Okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to have this wild player movement, and no one's, being held accountable, and you got tampering and all this other kind of stuff. Hey, Texas Tech, you want to sling some money around? That's fine. Pay, as you said, pay the kids' fee and give us $1 million. But we're going to see a lot more of this, I'm afraid. Folks going to court and trying to get money, and I believe you'll see these money figures start to increase if these things go the school's way.
Yeah.
Right. And either kids aren't able to read and understand what's in their contract when they sign these things, or their agents are terrible and not telling them.
Yeah.
And so they're getting bad advice in many.
Yeah.
But it's not necessarily that Sorsby went to Tech. That is the environment. Don't blame him at all. But at some point he has to understand, okay, I have to be here until December 15th, or I'm breaking my contract.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if that's the case, then I have to expect the other side to come hunting me. And that's exactly what Cincinnati's doing, and more power to them, And so, but yeah, interesting thing that we saw there. Interesting to see how that plays out. Easiest part of this is Tech's going to write them a check and this thing goes away.
Yep.
So,
And I would expect something like that to happen. Third thing, kind of sticking with the theme of your backdrop there, ETBU beach volleyball, sticking local here, is hosting a tournament this weekend. I mentioned that for a couple reasons. One, it's just cool. I don't know that I ever thought in my wildest dreams I'd move to Marshall, Texas and get to see competitive beach volleyball. But there are 2 local young ladies on the ETBU beach volleyball team from Hallsville. Savannah Sutton, a freshman, competes for ETBU beach volleyball, and from Marshall, Caitlin Ellenberg, after playing 2 years of indoor volleyball at UMHB and leading them, I believe, in assists last year. Very successful season. She now comes over, last year, the 2024 season, she comes over now to play beach volleyball. So you've got some local young ladies playing. They are starting tomorrow, and I'm looking up the schedule. Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, Oklahoma Wesleyan plays A&M Texarkana. ETBU plays at noon and at 4. They'll play Texas Wesleyan and then Oklahoma Wesleyan. On Saturday, ETBU plays at noon and 4, again. So they'll have another tournament at the end of March. But, we talk about the excellence of Tiger Athletics. And this is another one, a sport that's starting to grow there. If you haven't seen it, just on the backside of Ornelas Gymnasium, they've got a really neat beach volleyball area, but just thought it was cool. Not only that, you can go out, and I'm going to go out tomorrow because I've got to watch Caitlin. I baptized her. She's a member of our church. You better believe I'm going to go out and watch her. But you've got not only a cool sports opportunity to go watch, but you got some local young ladies that are competing in it.
Yeah, and you mentioned that, and I'm going to take it back here to my time at ETBU. I believe we had, when I left in 2012, I believe we may have had 11 or 12 sponsored NCAA sports in Division III. Now they're at 25. They have 12 on the men's side. And I've talked to Adam Ledyard, and yes, he is, he has to be there and have crews at all of these things. Just in baseball, it's just, on the men's side, here's what their sports are: baseball, basketball, bass fishing, cross country, football, golf, 2 hockey teams, lacrosse, soccer, tennis, and track and field. Okay. When I was there, we had baseball, basketball, cross country, football, soccer. That was it on the boys' side. So they've added, over the majority.
They've doubled. Yeah.
They've doubled it just on the men's side. On the women's side, of course, they have acrobatics and tumbling, basketball, beach volleyball, as you mentioned, cheerleading, cross country, flag football, which is starting this year. It's a new program, the newest program. Golf, pom, soccer, softball, tennis, track and field, and volleyball. So they actually have one more girls program on their side. Just massive athletic department growth at East Texas Baptist University, and kudos to them, man. But my gosh, that is pray for that sports information department every single day of the school year because it's very rare they have a night off.
No, not at all.
For sure. Okay. Very quickly here, my back page items. Good job, Matt, with your stuff, digging deep. I don't know if you saw this last night. South Carolina baseball hosted Queens University of North Carolina. They were based in Charlotte. They come into South Carolina and walk away with a 9-8 win over the Gamecocks in baseball. We were talking, I believe yesterday, you were highlighting upsets. Now, South Carolina isn't currently ranked, but pretty good baseball program traditionally in the SEC. And that was Queens' first win over a Power 4 program in their program history. They go on the road and they beat South Carolina to do that. And that 9-8 score is very misleading because South Carolina had to score 4 runs in the 8th inning just to get it to 9-8.
Wow.
So, and we were talking, I believe it was yesterday, about just the competitive and parity in college baseball. And there's another example of it right there in a midweek upset. Just to tell you guys again, and most of you probably know this, but a midweek baseball game at the college level in Division I is all about getting your back of your rotation, back of staff guys some innings. So you'll see a lot of bullpen games Tuesday, and you're typically, it's like your non-conference football games. They're
yes.
It's not necessarily a pay game, but that's kind of what the situation is when they do that. And so for Queens to come in there and knock off South Carolina, that game probably meant more to them than it did to the Gamecocks on Tuesday.
No doubt about it.
So congratulations to them. I don't know if you saw this, but Tony Dungy is reportedly out of the Football Night in America broadcast group on coming into this year. It was announced yesterday by NBC that he is likely out after 17 years covering the NFL for NBC. The official word in this press release that went out was that they are looking to change some things up on their Sunday night broadcast. But of course, it's more than not coincidental, I guess, that Dungy was very critical of Belichick in his induction into the potential induction into the Hall of Fame, and will not answer the question directly as to whether or not he actually voted for Belichick. Of course, going back 20 years or so in the rivalry, but when he was coach of the Colts and things like that. Now, if you know anything about Tony Dungy, it's really hard for me to see him as a guy that holds a grudge.
Yeah.
But he will tell you the truth, and he will tell you he will shoot it to you straight, and a very fine Christian man, and so I hate to think that maybe that's what's getting him out of here. It's not officially a firing; they're just saying it's more of a shaking up and reshuffling. They're not necessarily saying he's fired by NBC, but he will no longer apparently be on the Football Night in America broadcast.
Wow, I did not know that.
Yes. Learn something new every day here on the back page. Something that came across late yesterday, this is back in the Texas high school ranks, but Duncanville head coach Reginald Samples has indicated that he will return for the 2026 season. I don't know if you know who followed Texas football much at Duncanville, but Reginald Samples is, of course, a legend there. He's 71 years old. He, of course, led the Panthers back to the state championship game, 6A Division I this past December before they fell to North Shore, which has become a really good interstate rivalry at the 6A level. 2 of the biggest schools in the state going at each other almost annually. He's been 36 years as a Texas high school football coach between Dallas Lincoln, Dallas Skyline, and now Duncanville, with an overall coaching record of 363, 90, and 1. And, of course, it was good to see him after all of that time as a head coach finally get a couple of state championships a few years ago in 22 and 23 when Duncanville won it back-to-back. But apparently there had been some question as to whether or not he was going to hang it up. He'd kind of been hinting that way back in the summer, but he has made his decision, and he's coming back for one more run with the Duncanville. Right. So
very good.
Coach Sample, 71 years old. I can't see myself being a football coach at 71, particularly at the
I'll tell you what.
For sure.
Yeah.
I
couldn't see myself doing it at 47.
Yeah, I definitely won't be hosting a podcast at 71.
Nah.
Probably not. And then finally here, just one little thing that came across I thought was interesting. And again, this is NBA Central, a tweet that they put out yesterday. There's increasing buzz that LeBron James could retire and pivot into ownership as the face of a Las Vegas expansion team. With his agent, Rich Paul, potentially selling Clutch Sports to help finance the bid.
So you would have Brady and LeBron James in ownership of
in
the
Vegas.
same town?
In Vegas.
Woo.
Hopefully the Adelson's going and selling the Mavs back to someone who actually cares, and they go compete with him in Las Vegas for a team. But we'll see what happens. But team owner LeBron James is apparently on the table as we move forward. We talked about yesterday, right? I mean, the kind of there's a lot more, voices coming out of LA that this thing with Luka and LeBron is not working as everyone thought it might. Or actually, us people probably thought it wouldn't work, and we're being proven right. Okay, let's close out today's show. This date in sports history. Matt, this is a big day.
Yes, it is.
In the history of the Dallas Cowboys, because it was on February the 26th of 1989 that new team owner from Arkansas, one of your buddies, Jerry Jones, fires head coach Tom Landry with the Dallas Cowboys, what became known as the Saturday Night Massacre. Landry found out through the media, although Jones says he went down and told him he had to know what was going on because, of course, if you remember the night before, Jerry and Jimmy Johnson had been photographed dining at a Mexican restaurant there in Dallas. And, of course, they put two and two together. Next thing you know, Tom Landry's fired. There are people to this day in my life who have never forgiven Jerry for that.
Oh, yeah.
And will not forgive him for that. Coach Landry's been long gone, 25 years, I believe. He's been passed away, and people still – I can't blame them. I understand. But, my gosh, he's done a lot more since then to make you question why he's the owner of the Cowboys in many ways.
Yeah, I do not appreciate you calling him my buddy just because he's from Arkansas.
He's an Arkansas old man.
I'm going to start looking up some University of Texas people and call him your buddy.
You can't shut that.
Anyway.
He is an Arkansas product through and through, an old Razorback.
Yep.
Birthdays on today, and this surprised me a little bit, Matt. Former Dallas Mavs guard Rolando Blackman turned 67 today.
Wow.
67 years old. I did the math on this, and it comes out 67. Rowe is turning 67. He was born on this date in Panama City, Panama, but raised in Brooklyn. If you remember, and I had to do some research on this last night again, this is what made me miss a lot of the Texas basketball game, thankfully. He was drafted 9th overall in the 1981 draft, which meant that the Mavs actually had 2 of the top 10 picks in that draft because they drafted Mark McGuire number 1 overall that year. But he was drafted 9th in that draft as a first-round draft pick by the Mavs. He turned 67 today.
I believe my first ever NBA game I went to, I believe he was playing for the Mavs. It was a Mavs Spurs game. I mentioned it earlier.
Yes.
But I believe he was playing for the Mavs then.
Yes. Traded him to the New York Knicks, and he actually got to play in some finals matchups there for the Knicks, I believe. But he now is he's forever remembered and tied to the Dallas Mavs.
Yeah.
So, happy birthday, Roe. On this date, 1973, NFL Hall of Fame running back Marshall Faulk was born. He played, of course, for the Colts and the Rams. You have any memories of Marshall Faulk? Of course, he was the running back, of course, in the Greatest Show on Turf with the Rams there. And in many ways, I think he was probably the engine that kind of made or the thing that made that engine go. There in that Rams run where they just they brought the spread offense really into the NFL. People talk about the offense and Mike Marks being this great guru. Man, come on. You had Kurt Warner as your quarterback, Marshall Faulk as your running back. Who was it?
Isaac Bruce and Torrey Holt. Isaac
Bruce. Yeah. I mean, I could call plays like that. It doesn't matter when you have that kind of talent. But anyway, Marshall Faulk, it's his birthday today.
It's funny. I remember the electricity and explosiveness he brought to the game. Honestly, though, my favorite memory of Marshall Faulk was a Fox NFL game day commercial he was in. I don't know if you remember this one, but Marshall's at the door and someone rings the bell, and I can't remember the actress' name. It's a very old actress who's kind of dressed up, all slinky in a dress, and he's like, "Who's there?" And she goes, "Hi, Marshall," and he kind of doesn't know what to do, and he goes, "What should I do, guys?" And then you hear the da 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 da, and the all the NFL crew shows up, and they huddle up together, and they turn to him, and they go, "Punt, Marshall, punt." That was my favorite memory of Marshall Fall.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember that as well. And I kind of got him confused, I think, with LT, LaDainian Tomlinson, because there was that commercial, and I believe it was LT with the commercial of they were trying to convince him to just pretend to fumble the football, and he was like, "I don't fumble. I do not fumble." And they couldn't get him to do it. He was just, but I believe that was LT in that commercial. But anyway, good stuff there from that era for sure for us to remember. You probably don't remember this guy. I don't know if you knew him before you saw his name in our notes, but Earl Lloyd. You know who Earl Lloyd was?
No,
well, he was the first African American to play in the NBA.
Wow.
Broke the color barrier in the NBA. Made history on October the 31st on Halloween in 1950. He became the first African American to play in an NBA game when he debuted for the Washington Capitals. Although 3 black players had been signed in 1950, including Chuck Cooper and Matt Clifton, Lloyd's team happened to play first, which made him the first to appear in an NBA game. So he passed away on this date in 2015 at the age of 86, I believe is what he was. So but anyway, he actually went on, and I'm surprised I didn't really recognize his name, but he actually went on to be a assistant coach, longtime assistant coach, scout, and front office executive for the Pistons. And it was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2003. So on this date, Earl Lloyd passed away after a historic life and career there in the NBA.
Cool.
Final word of the day comes from Luke chapter 12, verse 40. It says, "You also be ready, because the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect." Folks, none of us knows what tomorrow holds, but we know who holds it. Stay ready, stay faithful, and live each day with eternity always in front view. For my friend Matt Paul, this is David Weaver, thanking all of you again for listening out there in East Texas and beyond. We certainly appreciate your support. Have a terrific Thursday, and join us again tomorrow for another edition of From the Press Box on the Right Team podcast. Until then, as always, keep writing your story.